Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Makkot. We are up to Perek Bet, Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai, Veliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Chana bat Miriam, Sason ben Ryan, Yoshua ben Shivra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen. And Le'avdil ben Chaim Lechaim, V'derefua Shelemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betok Shachol Israel, and the Chlama Merav Binyamin, Old Zion Chai ben Dvorah. The Mishnah discusses more cases of unintentional killing and teaches whether they are punished with exile. Hazorek even lirshut harabim v'harag. If someone throws a stone during the day into a public area that is hardly ever used during the day, for example, a place that was used at night as a public outhouse, on occasion a person would use it during the day as well, and the stone kills a person, the thrower goes into exile. Since the area is not usually used during the day, the thrower was not extremely negligent. On the other hand, since the area is sometimes used during the day, he should have been more careful. Therefore, the killing is considered shogeg, and the thrower goes into exile. Throwing a stone into a busy street, though, is extreme negligence, and if the stone kills someone, the thrower does not go into exile. And if one throws a stone into a place that is never used, but just this once a person was there and was killed by the stone, the killing is considered unexpected, and the thrower is also exempt from exile. In the next case, the stone thrower is exempt from exile. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Im miksheyatzta ha'even miyado, if the victim was not in the stone's path when it was thrown, but after the stone left the thrower's hand, utzia lazet rosho v'kiblah, the victim stuck his head out of a window into the stone's path and received its blow and died. Patur, the thrower is exempt from exile. Although the killing is not completely unexpected because he threw a stone into a place where people go, nevertheless, the Gemara on page 8 in Makkot derives from a verse in the Torah in Dvarim chapter 19 verse 5 that a killer does not go into exile in such a case. The Mishnah discusses a person who unintentionally kills someone in his own property. If a person threw a stone into his own yard and it killed someone, the law is as follows. If the victim had permission to go there, the thrower goes into exile. But if the victim did not have permission to go there, the thrower does not go into exile. It is stated in Dvarim chapter 19 verse 5. If one comes with his friend into the forest to chop wood, and his hand swings the axe, and the iron slips off the wood, and finds his friend, and he dies, the killer shall flee to one of these cities of refuge. The Torah gives an example, a killing that happens in a forest in order to teach that just as a forest is a public place that both the attacker and the victim have permission to enter, so too a shogeg killer goes into exile only if he killed in a place where both he and the victim were allowed to enter. This excludes a killing that occurs in the owner's yard, where the victim and the attacker do not both have permission to enter. The next Tana learns another law from this verse. Abba Shaul says the Torah gives the example of chopping wood to teach that just as chopping wood is a voluntary act and not a mitzvah, so too every killer goes into exile only if he killed while doing a voluntary act, but not if he killed while doing a mitzvah. Yatzad, this excludes the following cases from exile. Ha'av hamaked beno, a father who hits his son to educate him and inadvertently kills him. V'rav ha'rodeh talmido, a teacher who disciplines his student and inadvertently kills him. It is a mitzvah for a father to punish his son if necessary in order to educate him properly, and the same applies with a teacher who teaches Torah. Ushliach beddin, and a representative of the court who gives a sinner the punishment of Makkot lashes and inadvertently kills him. A person who violates certain Torah prohibitions is punished with lashes. The lashes are administered by a representative of the court. Although the Torah prescribes 39 lashes for this punishment, a doctor would examine the sinner to see if he was capable of bearing the full 39 lashes, and the sinner would be given only the number of lashes that the doctor said he could bear. Our Mishnah refers to a case where the doctor miscalculated and the sinner died from the blows. The court's representative who gave the blows does not go into exile because he killed while doing a mitzvah. Since these acts are mitzvot, one who kills b'shogeg while doing them does not go into exile. And that is then of Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel discusses whether certain people go into exile if they kill b'shogeg. Ha'av goleh alidei ben, a father goes into exile for killing his son b'shogeg unless he killed his son while educating him, as we saw in the previous Mishnah. V'aben goleh al yedei ha'av. Likewise, the son goes into exile for killing his father, b'shogeg. The laws of exile generally apply only if both the killer and the victim are Jews. The Mishnah discusses the law if the killer or victim was a person who was not considered a full Jew. Hakol golin al yedei Israel. Everyone, even a Canaanite slave or a kuti, goes into exile for killing an ordinary Jew b'shogeg. A Canaanite slave owned by a Jew undergoes a partial conversion and is obligated in the same mitzvot as women. And the kutim were a pagan group who settled in Eretz Israel during the first temple era. When they were attacked by lions, they converted to Judaism in the hope of being saved. However, even after the conversion, they kept some pagan beliefs and did not observe the mitzvot properly. Tanaim dispute whether they are considered full Jews, but our Mishnah says that everyone, even the Canaanite slave or a kuti, goes into exile for killing an ordinary Jew b'shogeg, b'sled gorin al yedeihen. Similarly, an ordinary Jew goes into exile for killing a Canaanite slave or a kuti. Although Canaanite slaves and kutis are not considered full Jews with regard to all laws, the laws of exile apply to them. Chutz me'al yedei gel toshav. An exception, though, is a gel toshav, a non-Jew who accepts upon himself not to worship idols. A gel toshav, literally resident foreigner, is a non-Jew who commits not to worship idols and is allowed to live among the Jews in Eretz Israel. If a gel toshav kills an ordinary Jew b'shogeg, he does not go into exile. The gel toshav eno goleh ela al yedei gel toshav. Since a gel toshav goes into exile only for killing another gel toshav b'shogeg, but not for killing an ordinary Jew. So a gel toshav, if he kills an ordinary Jew, b'shogeg, he does not go into exile. Only if he kills another gel toshav does he go into exile. Although a gel toshav is not Jewish, the Gemara on page 9a derives from the verse in the Torah in Bamidbar chapter 35 verse 15 that the laws of exile apply not only to Jews but also to anyone living among them, such as a gel toshav. However, the Gemara learns from another verse in Bamidbar chapter 35 verse 12 that this applies only when a gel toshav kills another gel toshav b'shogeg, but not if he kills an ordinary Jew. The Mishnah cites a dispute as to whether a blind person can be punished with exile. Hasumai no goleh. A blind person who killed b'shogeg does not go into exile since he cannot see. If he kills, it is considered unexpected, as the Rambam writes in Nechot Rotzech, chapter 6, halacha 14. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir Omer, but Rabbi Meir says goleh. He goes into exile. One of the verses in the Torah that discusses exile in Bamidbar, chapter 35, verse 23, implies a reference to a blind person. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir argue whether that reference excludes a blind person from the laws of exile or includes him in those laws. The Rav says the halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Meir. The Mishnah cites a dispute about a person who kills a person he hates. Hasoneh no goleh. If an enemy kills inadvertently, meaning a person inadvertently kills someone he hates, he does not go into exile, because we assume that since he hates the victim, he was overly negligent. Therefore, the killing is not considered shogeg. The enemy did an act that is normally considered shogeg. For example, he lowered a barrel and it fell and killed someone. But since he hates the victim, we assume that he lowered the barrel in an overly careless manner. A person is considered an enemy to another person if he did not speak to him for 3 days out of hatred. Now, the previous Tana holds that although we suspect the person who killed his enemy of being overly negligent, we do not assume that he murdered him deliberately. The next Tana disagrees. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says, Hasoneh ne'erag. An enemy who kills a person he hates is executed, even if the death appears to be shogeg, because we assume that he fully intended to kill him. For example, if he was lowering a barrel and it fell from his hands, we assume that he lowered it to fall, that he allowed it to fall deliberately. And even though a murderer cannot be executed unless he is warned before he commits the murder, an enemy can be killed even without a warning, neshu kimuad, because it is considered as if he were warned. Usually a sinner cannot be punished if he was not warned before, because we cannot be sure whether he sinned intentionally. However, since we can assume that an enemy kills intentionally, he can be executed even if he was not warned. However, if it is clear from the circumstances that the act could not possibly have been deliberate, he is not executed. A third opinion, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Yesh soneh goleh, there is an enemy who goes into exile for inadvertently killing a person he hates. V'yesh soneh sheno goleh, and there is an enemy who does not go into exile, meaning it depends on the case. Zeh klal, this is the rule. Kol shu yachol omar ledat harag, whenever it is possible to say that he killed intentionally, meaning we suspect that he did it deliberately, eno goleh, and he does not go into exile. However, he is not executed. Right? So whenever it's possible to say that he killed intentionally, we suspect that he did it deliberately and he does not go into exile. However, he is not executed. For example, he was lowering a barrel with the rope and the rope slipped out of his hand, causing the barrel to fall on his enemy. Since it is possible that he let go intentionally, he does not go into exile. However, he is not executed since we cannot be sure that he killed deliberately. But if it seems clear that he killed without intent, he goes into exile, because in such a case we can assume that the killing was shogeg, even though he is an enemy. For example, he was lowering a barrel and the rope snapped, causing the barrel to fall on his enemy. It's unlikely that the killer planned for the rope to snap, therefore he goes into exile. Now the Tana Kama, who says that an enemy never goes into exile, maintains that even in such a case we assume that the killer somehow causes the enemy's death through his negligence. For example, he didn't check the rope properly. And the Rav tells us, En halacha lo Rabbi Yossi beRabbi Yehuda velo Rabbi Shimon. The halacha does not follow Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, and neither does it follow Rabbi Shimon. Elo, rather, a soneh, a person, an enemy, eno ne'erag veno niklat. He is not killed and he does not go to the city of refuge. Shecheskato shu karov lemezid, because we assume that he's close to being deliberate. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.